Welcome to Fights, the ultimate home of UFC breaking news, shocking updates, and every story that sets the MMA universe on fire. Stay tuned, because here, the real action begins. Brian Ortega unconscious for 30 minutes in UFC Shanghai weight cut disaster. Brian Ortega reveals he fell unconscious for about 30 minutes from the UFC Shanghai weight cut disaster. Two-time UFC title challenger woke up in the ER and still went ahead with the fight against former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling. The shocking revelation has left the mixed martial arts community stunned and concerned about the health and future of one of the most resilient, but also most battle-worn fighters in the UFC. Ortega's ordeal was not only a near disaster for his career, but also a chilling reminder of the risks that fighters take in pursuit of competing at the highest level of the sport. Ortega's UFC Shanghai week started like any other fight week, but ended in a chaotic series of events that exposed the dangers of weight cutting once again. Heading into the co-main event, Ortega was already under pressure to bounce back after losing 3 of his previous 4 fights. He had fought and lost to Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, and Yair Rodriguez, while picking up a lone win against Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie. His career trajectory had been full of highs and lows, but few could have expected the drama that unfolded in Shanghai. Originally scheduled to fight Sterling at featherweight, Ortega began his weight cut as usual, aiming to reach the 145-pound limit. But according to him, his body reacted differently this time. Despite years of experience making the cut, Ortega's system suddenly refused to shed the water weight needed. On Thursday night before weigh-ins, Ortega and his team launched into an extreme final push to drop the last remaining pounds. They pushed through the night, cutting weight continuously from midnight to 8 in the morning. But something felt off. Ortega said his body simply refused to sweat as it normally would, holding on to the water in a dangerous way. Yet he pressed on, determined to make the weight. Then came the frightening collapse. After putting on plastics and doing another round of biking, Ortega lost consciousness for what he estimated to be about 30 minutes. His team scrambled to cool him down, removing his clothes, applying ice, and trying to revive him. He eventually regained consciousness, but it was not in his hotel room. It was in the emergency room. Doctors had rushed to intervene, and Ortega woke up in the ER, realizing the full gravity of what had just happened. Despite that terrifying scare, Ortega still insisted on fighting the next day. The UFC moved the bout up to lightweight at 155 pounds, recognizing that the featherweight cut was no longer possible. At the official weigh-ins, Ortega looked visibly weak and disoriented. Many fans watching the footage later commented that he seemed delirious and drained. Ortega himself admitted that he was coming off a near-death-like experience, yet he still pressed forward, explaining that he owed it to his family, his supporters, and his opponent. Ortega revealed that Sterling personally approached him ahead of the fight, expressing concern and even telling him that the UFC already had a backup replacement in case he withdrew. But Ortega refused, saying he did not want to waste anyone's time and wanted to stand by his commitment on fight day. On fight night, Ortega entered the cage, but by his own admission, his body was far from ready. He nearly fainted just walking outside before the fight. His balance and energy levels were completely compromised. Still, he put on the gloves and made the walk to the Octagon in front of thousands of fans in Shanghai. The fight itself was a clear demonstration of Sterling's tactical discipline and Ortega's diminished condition. Sterling controlled the action throughout the contest, earning a decision victory. It was Ortega's 4th loss in his last 5 fights, and another setback for the man once considered one of the brightest young stars in the featherweight division. After the fight, Ortega released a detailed statement and video explaining everything that had happened. He described how scary it felt to be unconscious for half an hour and then try to compete at the highest level of MMA less than 24 hours later. He admitted that fear crossed his mind, but he chose to fight anyway, saying he did it first for his family and second for his fans. Ortega gave full credit to Sterling, acknowledging that the former bantamweight champion fought smart and stuck to his game plan. Sterling used movement, point striking, and defensive awareness to avoid prolonged grappling exchanges. Ortega said he had hoped for a war, a grueling back-and-forth battle, especially on the ground, but that never materialized. Sterling simply played a strategic and careful fight, and Ortega had no answers. The loss leaves Ortega at a crossroads in his career, a two-time title challenger who has come up short against the elite. The damage from this fight week may not be physical in the traditional sense of broken bones or torn ligaments, but the toll on his health could be longer lasting. Prolonged unconsciousness from dehydration and extreme weight cutting is not something to be taken lightly. Medical experts warn that such episodes can put organs under strain, and even risk long-term neurological issues. In the broader MMA community, Ortega's ordeal reignited debates about weight cutting. The practice has long been controversial, with fighters routinely shedding 10 to 20 pounds of water weight in the days before a fight, only to rehydrate back to near normal size on fight day. The UFC has introduced measures to monitor fighters more closely, but stories like Ortega's prove that the dangers are far from solved. Fans, fighters, and analysts flooded social media after Ortega's revelation. Many express admiration for his toughness and heart, but an equal number criticized the system that allowed him to compete after such a medical scare. Some argued that the UFC should have stepped in and pulled him from the fight regardless of his willingness to go on. The promotion has faced criticism in the past for similar incidents where fighter safety seemed to take a backseat to the show going on. Ortega himself took responsibility, saying that travel and the significant time zone change may have played a role in how his body retained water. He acknowledged that he should have listened to the warning signs earlier and learned from the experience, calling it a lesson. He also reaffirmed his loyalty to the fans who have supported him through thick and thin. Ortega's fighting style and career have always been defined by resilience. He has absorbed punishment in wars with Holloway and Volkanovski, and he has pulled off stunning comeback victories like his submission of Cub Swanson. But this episode in Shanghai may go down as one of the most scariest moments of his career. In a sport where courage is often celebrated as much as skill, Ortega's decision to fight after such a traumatic incident is both admirable and alarming. His comments reflect the difficult balance fighters face between pride, obligation, and health. Ortega said that no matter who you are, your health comes first, but his actions showed that in the moment, he felt the need to sacrifice safety for the sake of competition. The MMA world will now watch closely to see how Ortega recovers physically and mentally from this ordeal. With 4 losses in his last 5 fights, his path back to title contention looks steeper than ever. But given his history of resilience, it would be unwise to count him out. Sterling, on the other hand, continues to build momentum at lightweight. After his dominant run as bantamweight champion, his smart, calculated performance in Shanghai showed his adaptability across weight classes. He showed respect for Ortega's situation, but did not let it affect his focus in the Octagon. For Ortega, the question now becomes whether featherweight is even a viable division for him moving forward. His frame and struggles suggest that lightweight may be safer, though still difficult. He must evaluate not only his competitive future, but also his long-term health. The human body can only take so much punishment, and cutting weight to dangerous levels repeatedly increases the risks significantly. The UFC also faces renewed pressure to address weight cutting more aggressively. Hydration testing, alternative weight classes, or more rigorous medical monitoring are all potential solutions, but each comes with complications and resistance from fighters and promoters. Ortega's Shanghai nightmare may prove to be another turning point in that ongoing debate. For now, fans are left with the image of Brian Ortega, a fighter who pushed himself to the absolute limit, endured unconsciousness, hospitalization, and near collapse, but still walked into the cage to compete. His willingness to risk everything for family and fans is both inspiring and troubling. It encapsulates the paradox of combat sports, where courage and danger are inextricably intertwined. In the aftermath, Ortega thanked his supporters once more and congratulated Sterling for executing a sharp game plan. He promised to learn from the ordeal and continue fighting on. Whether his next chapter leads him back to contention or toward a more cautious approach remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. His story from UFC Shanghai will be remembered as one of the most shocking cautionary tales in recent UFC history. It was not just a fight. It was a survival test, a glimpse into the razor-thin line between bravery and recklessness in the unforgiving world of mixed martial arts. Thanks for watching Fights, your ringside seat to every twist, every comeback, and every breaking moment in UFC. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next big fight story.